Alrighty. So, when I was a kid, I remember my mom and my grandma would tell me stories about, if you were only 10 years older, it would be legal for the teachers and the principal at your school to spank you if you misbehaved. That's what they'd say to me when I was a kid. And I didn't really believe them. I thought that had to be a rumor or a myth. And as I got older, I quickly realized, holy shit, they actually used to allow paddling. Yeah, an actual Caleb. We've been spending most of our lives living in a Caleb mop in paradise without even knowing it. Anyway, paddling was a real thing in American schools. Not only that, it is not a thing that used to happen. It is a thing that still happens and is actually coming back and is back on the rise. That's right. Public schools in America allowing teachers and other faculty to physically assault students for not behaving. I think you can guess which states and which politicians it is that are pushing to, continually make this more common and have held on to this practice. Literally Handmaid's Tale, what the fuck? Oh, were you guys under the impression that any conservatives actually gave a shit about the safety or well-being of children? Anyway, let's go ahead and read this article. This is from the New York Times. I literally bought a subscription to the New York Times earlier today just so I could read this article to you guys. So you guys better fucking like. Paddling makes a comeback in a Missouri school district. Corporal punishment has been in a slow decline since before the pandemic, but remains legal in 19 states, mostly in the South. The practice makes children more aggressive and disruptive, researchers say. Oh, who would have thought allowing the teachers to beat the shit out of kids and then just because they've done something wrong and then it's like in the Shawshank Redemption. That turned out so well. Anyway, a Missouri school district's announcement that it is bringing back paddling drew a lot of attention and dismay this week. But corporal punishment, with an interruption, perhaps, for the coronavirus pandemic in some places, never went away in a large number of schools. The practice remains legal in 19 states, mostly in the South, despite efforts to abolish it. And although the numbers have declined in the past decade, about 70,000 public school children were subjected to corporal punishment, that's paddling, in the 2017 to 2018 school year. Holy fuck. In one school year, the 2017 to 2018 school year, 70,000 public school children in America were subjected to corporal punishment, which is paddling. 70,000! To give you an idea of how many people that is, some of the biggest armies that literally conquered slices of entire continents were smaller than 70,000 people. Okay? Legions that conquered nations were smaller than 70,000 people. Just to give a little perspective on how many children got beat by school faculty in America in public schools in just the 2017 to 2018 school year. The most recent year for which federal data is available, that is the most recent year that we have federal data available for, is the 2017 to 18 school year. Nearly 4,000 schools reported using corporal punishment during that school year. It's just a really, really disturbing practice that some districts just continue to hang on to, said Morgan Craven, National Director for Policy Advocacy and Community Engagement at the Intercultural Development Research Association, which supports a federal ban on corporal punishment in schools. As you can imagine, the overwhelming amount of child psychologists and experts on this issue agree that hitting children in any form of physical punishment or physical discipline is not effective and does not work. And And yet, particularly conservative states and conservative school districts continue to uphold beating children as something that is legal because they don't care about protecting children or their well-being or their safety. They care about enforcing a almost like a miniature snow globe version of the world they want to achieve on a macro scale, right? It's like how in the household, the average conservative guy wants to have like a subservient wife that's just a breeding mule that does all the housework and just, breed, like pumps out babies all day and gets, fucked all day by him. And the kids are just like, either doing chores or going to school or doing things that he approves of. And like, basically like everybody is subservient to him at the end of the day. That is like the ideal conservative household, which is essentially just a scaled down version of what conservatives want the entire country to be like. One man on top, everybody else subservient to him. And right now they want that man to be Trump. The practice, defined as paddling, spanking, or other forms of physical discipline, jumped back into the news this week with the announcement that the school district in Cassville, a small city in southwestern Missouri, had reinstated paddling, a practice it abandoned in 2001, according to the Springfield News Leader. Wild, they're resurrecting shit from 2001. That's how far we backslid. Corporal punishment will be used only with a parent's permission, which really doesn't mean much. I mean, okay, child abuse, but with parents' permission, what's that? What difference does that make? Only when all other alternative means of discipline have failed, and then only in reasonable form and upon the recommendation of the principal. Doesn't matter. Experts agree it doesn't work, and it's harmful. The district's policy states, it was put in place in response to requests from parents, the superintendent, Marilyn Johnson, told the News Leader. We've had people actually thank us for it, he told the newspaper. Surprisingly, those on social media would probably be appalled to hear us say these things, but the majority of people that I've run into have been supportive. You'd be surprised, but in the South, especially among conservative spaces, child abuse is extremely, extremely popular and extremely, extremely beloved. Child abuse is like a core tenet of conservatism. It's really hard to be like a conservative household and not have child abuse take place in some way, shape, or form. Really, really hard. A lot of like very rare pegs have to fit into square holes for a conservative household to not have some abuse going on. Anyway, Dr. Johnson did not respond to requests for comment on Friday. The practice remains legal because of a U.S. Supreme Court decision that is more than 40 years old. In 1977, the court ruled in Ingram v. Wright that corporal punishment in schools was constitutional, which meant that each state could make its own rules about physically disciplining students. If one adult were to paddle another with a wooden board, it would be considered assault, said Elizabeth T. Gershoff, a professor of human development and family sciences at the University of Texas at Austin. But when the teacher hits a smaller person who happens to be a child, these states and these schools are saying it's okay, she said. It's showing we give children less protection against violence than we give adults. Like, to give you an idea, by the way, let me talk about a scenario that would happen here in America, okay? You're walking down the street, and you look over because you hear screaming. A man with a wooden paddle, is chasing down another full-grown adult, a woman. Chases her down, pins her to the ground, and begins hitting her with it, And she's squirming, and she's screaming, and she's crying, she's trying to get away, and he's hitting her with it, right? As you can imagine, realistically, in a case like this, people are calling the cops. The cops are showing up. If, that guy is going away in handcuffs, that guy might even get fucking shot by the cops if he refuses to stop and drop the weapon and step away from the victim and everything. But if it was a dad chasing his kid out into the street and spanking his kid with a belt and the cops pulled up, the cops would say, 99 out of 100 times in America, the cops would say, "What's going on here?" Parent says, "My kid was acting up, talking back at me. I'm spanking him. Ran out the front door." Yep, sometimes you gotta give them a nice firm hand. You take them on back inside, give them a good whooping. And that's what'll happen in America. That's what'll happen. And parents that beat their kids will say as much to their kids. That's what'll happen. But yeah. Depends on the state, but yeah, it's a little cringe. It's a little bit cringe. It really is weird how we've kind of just what would be considered assault and like a crime that would put you in like end your life. Like your life is over with assault charges if you get charged with that in America. Something that like if you did it to an adult would be life-ending assault charges is like, well, I mean, that's your kid. You can do whatever you want to your kid, you know, as long as it's not sexual, of course. I don't like what the fuck? You're allowed to beat the shit out of your kid? No. You shouldn't be allowed to beat the shit out of your kid. You should not allowed to be abusing your kids. It's because conservatives hyperfixate on, like, sex no matter what it is. And it's why they'll pedo jacket basically anyone or anything that stands against what they fight against or what they fight for. And why, despite doing that, they don't seem to give a shit about any other instance of child abuse. Interesting. Wait, assault charges ends your adult life? How? Getting assault charges, realistically, means that you now have a criminal record, and it is going to be very hard to... A fight is an assault charge? It is going to be very, very hard. Okay, it is not always a life-ending scenario to get assault charges on your record, but, like... If you've got a clean record and then you've just assaulted somebody and now you've got assault charges on your record, you've just taken a big hit. You've just taken a massive L, okay? Is anyone here arguing against this? You've taken a massive L if that happens, all right? Anyway, and then of course there's people taking pride in beating their kids, which is pretty cringy. But corporal punishment just means you can beat your kids for acting disobediently, and I mean beat? Yes, of course, yeah. Anyway, but when the teacher hits a smaller person who happens to be a child, these states and these schools are saying it's okay, she said. It's showing we give children less protection against violence than we give adults. Groups such as the American Psychological Association, which has opposed corporal punishment in schools since 1975, have long argued that paddling can cause injury and trauma and is not effective at improving behavior. Hey, the American Psychological Association is also one of the extremely reputable American psychological groups of scientists and researchers that also backs up everything that I say about transgenderism on stream. It's one of my number one sources that I pull my info on trans issues from, is the American Psychological Association. Yeah, pretty cool to see them get name dropped here, huh? To the contrary, children become more aggressive and disruptive the more frequently they are subjected to physical punishment, according to the association. No fucking shit. No fucking shit. Of course they do. This is a good strategy to eventually have all of the students like sharpen their pencils real sharp one day and decide they've had enough from Mrs. Susie. Next time she decides to bring out the paddle, everybody decides to bring out the pencils. Like 12 versus 1, Mrs. Susie. Who do you think's gonna win, your classroom or you? It's a good recipe for that to happen. To the contrary, critics have also cited research showing that black students and students with disabilities are more likely to be paddled in school than their peers. Oh, I wonder why. Racist teachers might use this as an excuse to literally beat the shit out of POC students, and students that have disabilities that might cause them to have anything from issues to paying attention to class, to learning disabilities, to God knows what else could also be negatively affected by this. Who would have fucking thought? How many ADHD-riddled kids do you think got the shit beaten out of them by teachers because they couldn't pay attention in class back during, like, the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, mid to late or early to mid-90s, etc.? So many kids with ADHD and autism that just couldn't pay attention or keep up in class. Nothing wrong with that, but the response from the school would be to beat them. Fucked up. So fucked up. Although they constitute only 15% of public school students in the United States, black students make up You can't just say that, New York Times. You can't you can't even do the you can't even start it with although. Why? You know about the Nazi, like template for this meme, Jesus. Although they constitute only 15% of public school students in the United States, black students make up 37% of the students subjected to school corporal punishment. That's pretty disproportionate, according to the association. Children with disabilities make up 21% of all instances of corporal punishment, even though they are 17% of the student population. Over the last 5 years, 4 states, Louisiana, Mississippi, Oklahoma, and Tennessee, have banned schools from using corporal punishment against children with disabilities, although Oklahoma banned the practice only for students with severe disabilities, Professor Gershoff said. How are these fucking states doing better than oh my god. How is Mississippi doing better than Missouri? Listen, maybe it's just me, but I feel like Missouri's got a big city in it, right? Missouri has St. Louis. St. Louis is like a massive city with a big population. You know? You'd think that they'd have like enough of a young, well-educated population. Well, I guess Missouri or St. Louis has an issue with education, I guess, and like funding for schools. But regardless, just being in a city alone means you're probably going to be more well-educated than someone who lives in a rural area. It's not that big of a city. It's not. I've never been to that part of the country, chat. I'm talking about it. Until I've been to a certain part of the country, that area exists entirely hypothetically to me. I have like a mishmash, like cartoony, like postcard map stereotype of what that location is like and what it looks like until I visit it myself. And then that location is 100% just like the places that I saw of that region. That's how it works for me. Anyway, have banned schools from using corporal punishment against children with disabilities, although Oklahoma banned the practice only for students with severe disabilities, Professor Gershoff said. Regardless, though, all of those states still have corporal punishment, though they just got rid of it for students with disabilities. Ms. Craven said it was troubling that some schools continue to use corporal punishment even as children contend with more serious mental health challenges, in part because of the pandemic. The American Academy of Pediatrics declared child and adolescent mental health a national emergency in October. We know that they need support, and we know that they need certain types of support, such as counselors and teachers from diverse backgrounds who can recognize trauma, Ms. Craven said. And so, to use a method like corporal punishment that just re-traumatizes kids is really disturbing and harmful. Professor Gershoff said that while she was dismayed that the Missouri district had reinstated paddling, she hoped it would lead to a broader debate about the practice. Most of the country thinks that this was abolished a long time ago, she said. It's reminding a lot of people that we need to be talking about this. Do we think it's okay that the state is hitting children in our name? And if not, we should work towards abolishing it. Paddling and corporal punishment has already been in schools for a very long time and has been still in schools, with people just kind of assuming it was gone, mostly in red states in the South, for a very long time. And now it's being brought back in some places. It's really, really hard for me to give any commentary on this because I feel like we've reached a point where it would be like if they announced they were bringing back slavery, you know? Maybe not quite as vitriolic, but I feel like on a moral level, we should all be equally opposed to this. It'd be like, well, guys, what the fuck do you want me to say? Do you want me to have something to say about the U.S. deciding to bring back slavery? What commentary can I give? It's bad. It's bad, okay? No, in all seriousness, this video is really just being made because I want to bring awareness to this. I was made aware of this, and I was like, what the fuck? For one, I did not know they were still doing paddlings in any schools in America at all, especially not public schools. And second, I didn't know that it was coming back. And third, I didn't know that it was an issue that has been around for a long time that has been like, that just people forgot about because people assumed it was a problem that was of the past. Fucking hell. This shit is crazy. God help those kids living in the South. Please get the hell out of there, my friends. If you can get out of there, you need to get out of there. Just move, forehead. Anyway, if you enjoyed this segment, please consider leaving a like. It helps the channel, my videos, my streams, my VODs, everything out a lot more than you even realize. It's not just an empty, hollow show of support to my channel. YouTube does actually push my content out to new people, more people, every single time that you guys engage with my content, and that includes likes. So, yeah. Thank you so much for the likes, the comments. You can also subscribe and ring the bell icon to see more from me whenever I upload or go live. And you can also follow my social media link down below to get, just see what else I'm doing on the internet. You know, I got all sorts of cool stuff going on Twitter. It's always the spiciest memes on Twitter. And finally, if you want to support me financially, keep me on the air, make it so I can pay my bills and keep buying my vapes and buying my food and paying my editor and saving up to move up to Seattle and raise quail for videos and stuff like that, which will be super fun. Then you can always support me financially directly by donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or supporting me on YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, StreamElements, or Patreon financially. But only do that if you can afford it and you don't have anything else to spend the money on, and you're just doing it because you want to help me out. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good one.